from pennies to dollars, and welcome to my channel. We talk about Depression era living on this channel and living frugally and making our ends meet, cutting expenses, all of those things that go into making it not so difficult for us to live and also leave money extra so we can do what we want to do. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about me growing up with frugal parents that lived in the Depression. I learned so much from them. So I wanted to share some of the principles and some of the things that I heard growing up, and maybe these would be helpful today. I feel like a lot of them are helpful today. The first one is that we believed less was still enough. We never looked at it as it being less. For instance, my dad had going to town overalls that were bright blue and still had the crease in them, and he only wore them when he went to town to go to the bank or something like that. Then he had his work overalls that were dirty, stained, worn, thin, and he wore those to work on the farm. And then he had what he called waist pants. Waist pants were pants like we wear today that he wore to either funerals or weddings, and he hated waist pants. That is what he had in his closet, but that was enough. And when my husband and I went to the state fair last year, we saw this older farmer, and he was walking around and he had on his bright blue overalls with a little US flag sitting in the top pocket. And I told my husband, he's wearing his going to town overalls. The next thing that I learned growing up from them is to appreciate everything we have. I grew up hearing about the good bedroom set. I grew up hearing about the good card table, and everybody had a card table because we played cards with friends and neighbors. That was our second table during the holidays. A card table was a staple in everyone's home. My grandma had a good wedding band, and it was just a plain gold band with no stones at all that she saved and kept in her jewelry box. And it was just as shiny as the day it was given to her because it was her good wedding band. Dad would talk about the good china cabinet, and it was just a little 3-foot cabinet with some glass on the front. Nothing fancy, nothing large, no hutch like we're used to today. It was just a small little stand with glass sliding doors. Everything was looked upon as being special, and they took care of what they had. The third thing that I learned is that hard work never killed anyone. We heard that a lot. And when my mom grew up, they didn't get electricity until after she graduated high school. So they hauled water, they heated water for baths. And I want to show you this little clip of the wash house that we had when I grew up on the farm until I was 5. So here's this little clip of that. Behind me is our old wash house that is falling apart and falling in. There used to be a windmill here, and it was the only source of water on this property, and I lived here until I was 5. And we had an old wringer washer, and water was hauled in from the wash house to the house, which is about 50 to 75 feet or so that we could heat it and take baths. This is all that's left of the foundation. We tore down the house, and then here really close was the cellar. So as you can see, lots of hard work went into their days. I have a diary that my aunt typed up for me that belonged to my grandma. And in that diary, she talks about going out hunting with the men and how she brought home possum. Back then, they not only ate these things, but they sold the skins. And I know that that's not something that you would do today, but my grandma was out there hunting with the men, and then certain days of the week she did the washing, like in the clip that I showed you before. So hard work was not anything that anyone was scared of. The third thing I learned about was being creative and making do. My mom made our clothes, and as we grew larger, she would adapt those clothes so we could still wear them. If we had pants, she would build in little V's into the waist to make them larger. She would add additions onto the bottoms of the legs so that they were long enough for us. Let me show you my gown from 8th grade that she made in this next clip. I thought I would share with you my 8th grade promotion dress that my mom made. We didn't have purchased clothing when I grew up. Mom made all of our clothes, and we had to wear floor-length gowns to be promoted for 8th grade at my school. And as I got taller and the clothes were too short, Mom would just add an insert. If you can see that there, she just added lace and an insert because I was still skinny. I was just taller, and that's how we made our clothes stretch. And the last tip that I wanted to share with you today is how we used and reused everything. Every single thing. There was so much creativity in how we used and reused things. And I feel like some of it even started during World War II. When I grew up, everything in our house was this light mint green color. And let me know if you remember that. But this was war surplus paint that they thinned down after the war, and they sold it to the public. It was cheaper. They made do by selling it to the public, and businesses, homes, porches, all kinds of things were made out of this color. And our entire house, every single room, was that light mint green. Dad would use and reuse things to make fencing. And I want to show you this clip of this really cool way that he welded and used these things to adapt them to the farm. This is another piece of my dad's handiwork. This is an old gate that he made out of a metal twin bed frame. And can you see the detail on the bed frame? And then he welded the closure to slide into the hole that closes the gate, which made it very secure. Here's another one of his gate closures. This is on a very large gate. All of it was welded, and he took any little pieces of scrap that wasn't being used and welded them into place. That is not coming undone. And look at this on the bottom. Some old piece of something. And here's the bolt. Again, they were fixed to last. And this is one of the things that he created that was made and welded by him. These are old tractor seats. You can see that each one of them are a little bit different because they're from old tractors that no longer ran, or old pieces of machinery that no longer ran, and he made seats out of them. Also reused any types of jars to make extra holders. A few of you have told me that you remember doing this as well. So let me show you this. Here's an example of storage back when I was growing up. My dad would take baby food jar lids and screw them to a board, and then you could just take the jar and put nuts and bolts and then just screw them in, and they would just hang there perfectly for storage. And I have to admit that I've continued to have that same type of mindset. If you have trouble with your cats getting into your garden, I came up with a great idea to keep them from using it as a litter box with things that I had around the house. In the spirit of finding things we can reuse as we're decluttering, I have came up with this. I just planted some of my green peppers in my little flower bed here, and I've used an old spring from an old baby bed to keep my cats from using it as a litter box. And those are eggshells that you see that I crunch up in there along with my coffee grounds. The eggshells keep the bugs from getting into your plants because they don't like the noise and they're sharp on their feet. Now this baby bed is so old that it can't be reused. It doesn't meet today's standards for safety, and it was old and I had it stored, and then I thought, you know what? That will come in handy for something, and it did. It may be a bit unconventional, but it works. Sometimes I wonder if my parents would think that we're a little bit spoiled these days with some of the things that we have and we use and we buy again so easily. We didn't do that growing up. We saved our money for things that were important to us, and what was important to us wasn't just buying the newer, better, most modern thing of something that we already had. So I hope that this has been interesting for you. If it has, give me a thumbs up and tell me some of the things that you remember from these 5 areas that I shared in your grandparents' homes or your parents' homes or in your upbringing. We would love to hear those. You have a great day.